Heyo, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and I'm a stay-at-home mom of 2 young kids, and I am so happy that you stopped by today. Today I'm going to be sharing 3 meals that we had for dinner this week. I kept this week pretty simple because none of us were feeling super well. I started some new medications and the kids also had some colds, so nobody was really feeling like eating a whole bunch and I wasn't feeling like cooking a whole bunch. Regardless, I'm still going to go ahead and share what we ate this week. So if you like this sort of content at the end of this video, be sure to go ahead and check out my channel. There's lots of related stuff like this, and I would love to have you stick around for a bit. Also be sure to check me out on Instagram, where I do a good bit of food reviews from my grocery hauls that I post on Tuesday, so lots of fun over there as well. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get started into this week's What's for Dinner. To start this week off, I went ahead and made some lasagna, and to get this recipe started, I went ahead and browned up about 1 pound of ground beef, to which I added in some chopped onions, Italian seasoning, salt, pepper, and a hefty spoonful of garlic. While I'm waiting for the meat to brown up and everything to caramelize over at the skillet, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the ricotta filling for the lasagna. Now, I basically recently just discovered that I may in fact like ricotta. For the longest time, I thought I hated ricotta, and I'm starting to realize that maybe I just hated Great Value brand ricotta because I tried a nicer brand and I liked it, and this was the Aldi brand and I also liked this one. So you know, I'm doing some self-reflecting. Anyways, I halved this recipe that's going to be linked down below in the description box, but to this bowl I added 1 egg, 1 small container of whole milk ricotta, a little bit of salt and pepper, some granulated garlic, some parsley flakes, lemon pepper seasoning, about a half a cup of shredded mozzarella, and a little bit of shredded parmesan, and then I went ahead and mixed that to combine. Now, if you're feeling particularly ambitious, you can definitely go ahead and make your own tomato sauce, but that is just not the time of life that I am currently in, so I went ahead and used a jar sauce that we like. And don't make the rookie mistake that I made. If you're going to use oven-ready lasagna noodles, you have to use a ton of sauce, which I did remember before I baked the lasagna. It just would have been way easier if I added that second jar here instead of how you're going to see me add the second jar. So yeah, this part is totally up to personal interpretation. You can use oven-ready lasagna noodles, you can use traditional lasagna noodles, you can use zucchini. I don't care what you use. You're going to go ahead and shape them to fit your dish, and then go ahead and put a hefty layer of sauce at the bottom. You're going to see here that I'm adding in that second jar of sauce by just pouring it in, because we're going to pop this in the oven for like an hour. It doesn't matter if that sauce is cold or hot. Then yeah, go ahead and place a layer of noodles. Then I think you should place a layer of your ricotta, bechamel, cottage cheese, whatever you're going to put there. Then put a nice layer of cheese. Then you're going to put 1 more layer of sauce. After that layer of sauce, you're going to go ahead and start the noodle layer and repeat until the lasagna is as high as you want it to be. I did try something fun this time around. I tried weaving my lasagna noodles, so I placed the first set like vertical and the second set horizontal, then vertical again, and I do think it helped the structure of the lasagna. So, you know, maybe try it if you're super bored like me. Once you're done layering, go ahead and cover the lasagna with some aluminum foil, and you're going to bake this at about 350 for 1 hour or so. I like to try to let my lasagna rest for at least about 40 minutes. I think it really helps with the structure of it, and it'll help you get a nice slice like this. I just served this up with a simple side salad, and this meal was super, super yum. You can see me taking a chef's snack here. Don't worry, that's a clean fork. I won't tell anybody if you don't. And for sure, I think this was the best lasagna that I have recently made. Here I'm going to be sharing my most favorite meatball recipe. Unfortunately, I have no idea where this recipe came from. I just have it in my personal recipe book, and this is the only meatball recipe that I use at this point. And thankfully, it is a very, very easy recipe as well because I make it in my KitchenAid mixer. And if you don't have one of those, I wouldn't worry too much about it. You can definitely mix this up with your hands. So to your bowl, you're going to go ahead and add 1 pound of ground beef, 1 pound of ground sausage, about 1/3 of a cup of breadcrumbs, and 1/3 of a cup of Parmesan cheese, a splash of milk and Worcestershire sauce, the secret ingredient, which is 1 to 2 tablespoons of stone ground mustard, then your dry seasonings, which is garlic powder, onion powder, and parsley to your tastes. Once everything in the bowl is all combined, I take a 1.5 tablespoon cookie scoop or muffin scoop and just go ahead and roughly portion out the meatballs. Then I will go back through and roll them with my hands. You can definitely make the meatballs bigger or smaller depending on however you like them. Just remember that the bigger they are, they will take more cook time. After everything is completely prepped, I just move over to my cooking area where I'm not going to be worried about cooking them all the way through. I'm really just looking for a sear on the outside of the meatballs, and then we're going to go ahead and pop them in the oven at about 400 for 15 to 25 minutes. Really, the important part is that you just want to have the internal temperature read 155 because there is pork. While the meatballs are in the oven finishing cooking, you can take this time to go ahead and prep the slider rolls. So these are just some brioche rolls from Aldi. They're not even cut in half or anything, so they're kind of perfect. And I'm just guesstimating a meatball sized hole to carve out, and then I'm gonna go ahead and also scoop it out. I did decide to save the parts that I'm scooping out because I had a pretty genius idea to turn them into little croutons, and they were super yummy, so I recommend doing that for sure. And while I'm here, I'm also just going to go ahead and chop up some provolone cheese so that I can stuff it into the rolls and then also place a few slices on top. I really could not get over how perfectly these meatballs fit into the little meatball holes that I made. I probably could not repeat this if I tried like getting them to fit this perfectly, and it totally added to the aesthetic, and I'm just so happy that this coincidence happened. Then I realized I wasn't working on a baking tray, so if I did this next part before changing my setup, that would be too messy for me. So I went ahead and fixed that real quick and just drizzled some garlic butter over top of the sliders and a generous portion over the crouton bits. Then I went ahead and covered them with a fair amount of marinara sauce and put them into the oven until everything was warmed through and bubbly. That took about 10-15 minutes for me. Honestly, I didn't serve this up with any sides or anything. This was kind of at the peak of everybody's colds and not feeling great. So this was pretty wonderful for a quick meal, and it kind of had a really heavy like appetizer vibe. So yeah, I enjoyed it and I think everybody else enjoyed it. So definitely recommend. Check out this tiny itty bitty cheese pool real quick. Okay, the last meal was not even on the menu at all or even in the running until about 2 hours before I made it. I went to Target earlier this day and I went by myself, so I had the chance and the opportunity to just kind of browse and peruse, which, you know, if you have little kids, that's kind of a rare opportunity. So I took my time. I saw these steaks and these steaks were on like ridiculous discount. Like I'm talking, I got all 2.5 pounds of this meat for about $6. So that's a pretty great price for beef around here. Now, this isn't the perfect cut of steak for what I wanted these to do. I really wanted to try to go for a Carne Asada breakfast vibe. And this steak just wasn't quite the quality for that. It was a chuck tender steak. So it's something that definitely had the potential to be a little rough. That's why I definitely took my time in tenderizing it and even using a meat mallet. And then I also wanted to marinate it. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do here. I'm just starting out with a little bit of salt and pepper, some soy sauce, some Worcestershire sauce, a big scoop of garlic, a little bit of cumin, and the juice of a whole orange. I'll talk about this a little later too, but it's something to consider if this is a recipe you're interested in. I personally just wish that there would have been a little more salt and also a little more flavor, because as you'll see later, I also end up adding a little bit of adobo seasoning to this. It was definitely a decent base marinade though, so go ahead and mix all of this up and then set it in your refrigerator for at least 2 hours until you're ready to use it. Learn from my mistakes part 2. Do not dump the entire marinade bag into your very hot cast iron like I did. There's just far too much liquid in there and it's not going to let your meat sear like you want it to. I wasn't sure once I realized that the steak wasn't searing if this was going to be salvageable to our tastes, but it ultimately ended up working out just fine. I did remove some of the liquid and then it was able to crisp up enough. I basically ditched all vibes of carne asada beyond the steak marinade flavoring and went full breakfast from this point on. So here I'm just setting up my most favorite hash brown recipe, and basically you just take a bunch of butter and oil, let it get sizzling hot, throw in some frozen hash browns, which is the important part, season up to your liking, but I like salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and paprika. And then of course the most important part is leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Just let it sit there for a really long time. Just leave it alone. Eventually you will want to flip it, but you want to kind of wait until it'll come up in chunks like that. Do you see how they kind of cling to each other? Yeah, you want to wait for that point. Then I'm just gonna go ahead and toast up some sourdough bread, and I'm doing it this way not to be like artisanal and fancy. It's just because my toaster simply will not fit sourdough bread in any capacity. So here we are. And then to finish out this meal, I'm just gonna go ahead and fry up some eggs really quick. As always, we love breakfast, so this meal was a slam dunk. We really enjoyed it. Everybody had some part of it that they really liked eating on, so hooray. While I was cooking the steak, I was worried about it being not so tender because of its cut and the over moist mistake I made, but here you can see it's still very tender and pink. Let me know down below in the comments, what do you call this type of egg? For me, this is always going to be a dippy egg. That is going to go ahead and wrap up today's video, so I do thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me this week. Be sure to go ahead and follow me on Instagram if you have one. Consider checking out my channel if you would like to see more content like this. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye!